Hello everyone, my name is Micah Mansfield, and this is a comprehensive summary and reflection of how to hide an empire. Today we'll explore the widely unknown but large scope of the United States and its territories. I will summarize the book, what I thought was important, and what implications this has for our understanding of American history and global influence. The U.S. controls multiple territories outside its mainland borders, including Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, Hawaii, Alaska, Virgin Islands, Mariana Islands, and more. Note that Alaska is one of the 50 states of the United States, and we are not considering this outside of the statehood of the United States. Situations like Puerto Rico's inability to vote or have representation show us that strange paradox of being a part of the U.S. empire. However, they don't get full rights accorded to them like the states have. The book's whole point is to emphasize the size and influence of America's empire, in which Immerwahr challenges the idea that the United States is notoriously portrayed as minimized and solely subject to the homeland, with the exception of a few islands. He sheds light on how the country exploited colonies and territories on its way to becoming a global superpower. In reality, American influence stretches far out into the world. Towards the end of the book, Immerwahr frequently uses the term pointillist empire to capture the subtle and indirect transformation of American foreign policy. He traces the progression of the United States from a land-hungry colonial power into a complex and global network with tremendous influence. Examples of this imperialism include the Spanish-American War. And according to encyclopediabritannica.com, after the Spanish-American War, the U.S. emerged as a global superpower, acquiring territories like Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. According to the Bill of Rights Institute.org, the Philippines were annexed by the U.S. following the war, which sparked debates between expansionists and anti-imperialists, and the Philippines were acquired for $20 million, leading the Philippine-American War as Filipinos resisted U.S. colonial rule. Now, annexation of Hawaii. According to the NEH citement, Hawaii was annexed in 1898 due to its economy and strategic military value. And now moving on to Guano Islands, 1856 enabled U.S. claims to unclaimed islands with guano deposits, expanding American territorial reach and resource control. And finally, Cuba, from this strange-looking URL. Cuba gained independence but remained under U.S. influence through the Platt Amendment, which allowed significant U.S. intervention in Cuban affairs. And there are obviously more. And here is the realization. Throughout the book, you really get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly about the greater United States that you live in, or that you didn't realize you lived in. And the more you read about how the United States has come about to hold the spotlight and maintain influence, the more you realize how little we knew about our country. Now moving on, How to Hide an Empire Summary Introduction. A brief summary of Acts 1, 2, and 3. The book's argument is divided into 3 parts, covering 2 subjects. The Colonial Empire, in which Immerwahr covers the period from colonial times to World War II, and the Pointillist Empire, which explores history from World War II until today. The chapters open with the author presenting the concept of the United States, as the logo map, as you can see on the right here, which features the familiar depiction of the country surrounded by its imperial property. Immerwahr beautifully illustrates the historical accounts taking place and deeply weaves each location in a slightly confusing, but beautiful and coherent way. He divides the U.S. path to imperialism into 3 acts. Now, keeping track of the locations and events is a very good way of forcing engagement. I found myself far more engaged unwillingly, but far more engaged nonetheless, because even if you zone out for a single sentence, it's going to throw you off for the whole chapter. I can't tell you how many times I had to reread the same paragraph just because I would, have that thought and then just go on a rabbit hole tangent or whatever. Moving on, Act number 1. In the first stage of the book, the author dives into the westward expansion of the 1800s. The reader has front row seats to the United States' unquenchable territorial appetite. This hunger for land pushed Native Americans further and further west until they started dwindling away. Act Number 2. In the second stage of the book, Imawar examines the United States' newfound imperial expansion. He begins by exploring the Spanish-American War, in which the United States acquired many territories like Alaska, Hawaii, the Philippines, just to name a few. Here we see Uncle Sam in the Philippines and Cuba, which are newly, begotten territories after the Spanish-American War. This image represents the U.S.'s influence and control over these regions, symbolizing a period of American expansionism and its emerging global power. This image can be credited to Grant Hamilton, which he titled Uncle Sam Watches Over Cuba and the Philippines. And this is a political cartoon drawn in 1902. Act number 3. In the final act, Imawar takes a good look at a post-World War II world in which the United States evolved to take different approaches when spreading its influence across the world. This is where pointillism is introduced by the question, why did the United States at the peak of its power distance itself from colonial empire? To answer that question, the author dives into the intricacies of these military bases and how they affect the hosting nation as well as America's power. Imawar states at the end of his book that, quote, U.S. foreign policy nearly uniquely has a territorial component, further emphasizing America's different approach, resulting in more influence. In the book's conclusion, Imawar gives the readers more insight into the consequences of America's imperial history and the never-ending reach of its influence. Here's what I learned from reading this book. This book shows you that America isn't just the mainland we see on most maps. It includes places like Puerto Rico and Guam, and learning about these parts can change how you see the American identity. Imperial, past and present, you get to dive into the nitty-gritty of how America expanded its reach, not just, with the old school colonization, but also through modern military bases and actually corporations. It's like connecting the dots on why certain places are part of the US story. The book doesn't shy away from the darker chapters of American history. And it's a reminder that while there's plenty to be proud of, there are also past actions that need acknowledgement and amends. This kind of honesty helps us appreciate the complexity of our national pride and patriotism. Beyond just the facts and the events, this book really makes you think about what it really means to be American in a global context. It challenges the simpler narratives and encourages a more thoughtful approach to understanding your homeland. And here are my sources. Hello everyone, thanks for watching my presentation. I hope you learned something today, and I can't wait to read your comments, and I can't wait to write comments on your posts and see you guys. So thank you very much. It's been a great semester. Take care. Have a good summer break.